I was running late that morning, rushing to make good on a promise I'd made to my son, Max, that I'd drive him to the bus stop instead of making him walk. We barely made it out the door, each clutching a piece of toast, when something stopped me cold. As I pulled up to the corner, my heart lurched. There was Max, my 12-year-old boy, standing stiff and frightened at the edge of the sidewalk. His small shoulders were hunched, his backpack clutched tightly to his chest. In front of him stood a middle-aged woman in a perfectly pressed pantsuit, her manicured fingers stabbing the air just inches from his face. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the fear flickering in my son's eyes. "I've never seen you here before." The woman's voice rang out, sharp and accusing, slicing through the quiet morning air. "This is a private neighborhood bus stop. I need to see your proof of residence right now, or I'm calling security." A few parents stood nearby with their kids, watching in uneasy silence, none of them stepping forward to intervene. I eased my unmarked police car to the curb, careful to keep the government plates out of view. We'd only been living in Oak Ridge Estates for 3 weeks, and I'd gone out of my way to keep my job quiet. Being the police chief in a small town like Ridgemore meant people treated you differently, and after Max lost his mom 2 years ago, all I wanted was for him to have something close to a normal life. The woman's voice rose another octave as I opened the car door. "Do you understand what trespassing means, young man? I'm the HOA president, and I have every right to question suspicious individuals in our community." Max's voice came out small, trembling. "I live here. My dad and I just moved in on Maple Drive." The woman, whom I would soon learn was Karen Whitfield, the infamous head of the Homeowners Association's Community Standards Committee, scoffed loudly. "That's exactly what someone who doesn't belong here would say. Maple Drive, really? Which house number? Who owned it before? Why haven't I seen your parents at any community meetings?" I approached slowly, keeping my tone calm and deliberate, the kind of composure that came from 20 years of dealing with confrontations. "Excuse me," I said evenly. "Is there a problem here?" Karen turned toward me, her expression radiating superiority. She was in her late 40s, with a sharp blonde bob, expensive slacks, and a gold HOA president pin gleaming on her lapel like a badge of power. She gave me only a dismissive glance. "I'm handling a situation," she said curtly. "This child claims he lives in our neighborhood, but I've never seen him before, and I know everyone who belongs here. We've had issues with outsiders trying to use our private amenities." Max's face lit up the moment he saw me. "Dad!" Karen blinked, eyes darting between us as she recalibrated without truly backing down. "Oh, you're his father. Well, as I was saying, as president of the Homeowners Association, it's my responsibility to ensure the safety of our neighborhood. We have strict protocols about who can use the bus stop. I'll need to see your community ID card." The other parents shifted uncomfortably, watching the exchange. One mother offered me an apologetic look that said clearly this wasn't Karen's first performance. I said calmly, "My son and I moved into 478 Maple Drive 3 weeks ago, the Harrison place. We're registered residents, and Max has every right to be here." Karen folded her arms, red nails tapping against her handbag. "Everyone knows the bylaws require new residents to check in with the HOA office and receive identification before using community facilities. The bus stop is one of those facilities," she added with a smug smile. "I don't make the rules. I just enforce them." I rested a hand on Max's shoulder. "Go wait in the car for a minute. Buddy, the bus will be here soon. I'll handle this." As he hurried off, I turned my attention back to Karen. This wasn't our first encounter with the HOA. In 3 short weeks, I'd already received 3 notices. One claiming our mailbox was 2 inches too low, another demanding we repaint our window trim to a more acceptable shade of beige, and a third warning us not to leave our recycling bin visible for more than 4 hours after pickup. "Mrs. Whitfield, right?" I asked, though I already knew. She'd personally delivered our welcome packet, complete with a 3-page list of supposed violations that needed immediate correction. She lifted her chin proudly. "That's right, Karen Whitfield, HOA president, 7 consecutive terms." Of course she was. Her chest puffed out with pride, her chin angled upward like a queen surveying her kingdom. "Well, Ms. Whitfield," I began evenly, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Questioning a minor without parental consent crosses several legal and ethical boundaries. My son was clearly distressed by the way you approached him." Karen huffed, her tone dismissive and clipped. "I have full authority from the association board to question anyone on community property. It's for everyone's safety. We've had vandalism incidents, and the board voted unanimously for stricter security measures. If your son had proper identification, there wouldn't have been a problem." Something in her smug tone made my patience snap. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge, holding it low so the kids wouldn't see, but high enough for her to recognize exactly what it was. "Chief Thomas Reynolds," I said quietly, "Ridgemont Police Department. I believe you were just harassing my 12-year-old son while he waited for his school bus. That's not only against HOA regulations, Ms. Whitfield, it could also be considered intimidation of a minor under state law." The effect was instant. Her face drained of color, and the self-importance that had inflated her moments ago collapsed into panic. Her mouth opened and closed before she stammered. "Chief, I had no idea you were. This is just a misunderstanding. I was simply doing my duty as HOA president to ensure community safety. If someone had told me who you were—" "That's a problem, Ms. Whitfield." I cut in, keeping my tone measured but firm. "You shouldn't need to know that I'm the police chief to treat a child with decency and respect. Any child, regardless of who their parent is, deserves better than to be interrogated and accused of trespassing on their way to school." The sound of the approaching school bus rumbled in the distance. I motioned for Max to come back. Karen was visibly shaken now, trying to regain her composure, but the other parents weren't pretending anymore. They watched her closely, some with disbelief, others with quiet satisfaction. "I'll be filing an official report about this incident," I said evenly. "Not as a resident, but as a law enforcement officer concerned about the harassment of minors. And I'd like to review the specific HOA bylaw that supposedly grants you authority to interrogate children without a parent present. I imagine your board's legal counsel will be very interested in that policy." A murmur spread through the small crowd. Then one mother stepped forward hesitantly. "She did the same thing to my daughter last month," she said quietly. "Accused her of bringing a friend from outside the neighborhood and threatened to fine us. We didn't say anything because Karen runs a violation committee." Another parent nodded. "She had my landscaping crew banned because they parked in my driveway for 10 minutes. Cost me $1,000 to find someone new." Karen's face flushed crimson again, but this time it wasn't authority driving it. It was humiliation. "This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "I've devoted 8 years to keeping this community safe and maintaining our property values. You have no idea what would happen if we didn't enforce standards." The bus squealed to a stop beside us. I crouched to hug Maximum. "Have a good day at school, buddy," I said softly. "Don't worry about any of this." Once the kids boarded, I straightened and looked back at Karen, who was now clutching her designer handbag like a shield. "Ms. Whitfield," I said firmly, "I expect to see you at a police station this afternoon to give a formal statement about your conduct, specifically your practice of questioning minors. 3 o'clock should work." Her jaw dropped. "You can't seriously think this warrants police involvement. I was just doing my job." "Harassment isn't anyone's job," I replied coolly, "and targeting children crosses a line far beyond HOA policy. What you did today could result in charges of harassment, intimidation, and impersonating a security official, each carrying fines up to $5,000 and even jail time in this state." The blood drained from her face once more. For the first time, Karen Whitfield, the self-proclaimed queen of Oak Ridge Estates, was speechless. The other parents stayed, some exchanging faint smiles. Clearly, I wasn't the only one she'd pushed too far. A week later, a community-wide email went out from the HOA board. In careful language, it announced that Karen Whitfield had regretfully stepped down from a position as HOA president and committee chair following multiple formal complaints. It also stated that she was fined $2,000 for harassment and required to complete 40 hours of community service. The board issued a formal apology to all residents, especially families with children, and promised to review every policy to ensure a more respectful and inclusive environment. The next morning, I saw Karen hurrying from her white Mercedes to her front door, sunglasses on, head down, pretending not to see the neighbors she used to lecture. I didn't feel triumph, just relief. Relief that my son, and every other kid in this neighborhood, could finally wait for the bus without fear of being treated like a suspect.